Hi, Taurus. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for September of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julia Mijas in Pioneer, California.
Hey, Taurus. In this month's horoscope, the focus is on productivity and your work life. If you'd like further insight on your career or job progress, you can get it in a mission orders reading, and you'll find a link for that in the text that comes with this video. Well, I want to start with Juno, which is continuing retrograde. Here she is traveling along through your 11th house. And Juno has had all of us on a relationship retrospection journey since July, and she won't be done until October. So this is kind of a big deal, and it does happen every year for several months. So Juno's in Pisces, which means that relationship retrospection has a spiritual bent, an otherworldly bent, and we may well be asking ourselves, these committed relationships in my life, whether personal or professional, do they align with my spiritual value system? And in your case, you might be asking yourself that most especially in the domain of the 11th house, which is friends and friendships, acquaintances, and in your business network. So you might be asking yourself this about people that you've been connected to for a long time, even if it's a light, networky kind of a connection. You can find out more about this Juno and Pisces thing, including really specific dates when milestones happen during it, in the video that we made about it, which you'll find on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology, in the 2022 year news playlist there. Julia, let me throw the ball over to you because I know you've got news about Mercury, Venus, and Mars.
Yes, I do. Well, hey there, Taurus. Lots going on with Mercury this month. He's going through 2 different houses and doing a retrograde cycle. So Mercury starts the month in your 6th house. This is a very natural fit for Mercury because they have a lot of overlaying meanings. The 6th house is a house of service. It's a work house. It's also a house of organization, routines, schedules, those types of things. So when Mercury is in the 6th house, it's a really, really good time for getting more order in your life. Your mind, because that's represented by Mercury, can really help you sort of strategize and plan and maybe organize a lot better. So if you have like closets to clean out, or you have, bookkeeping to go through, this is a wonderful time for it. Now on September 10th, Mercury is going retrograde in this house. So that sense of order might kind of slip into a little bit more disorder. So when Mercury goes retrograde, this happens about 3 times a year. It just means that Mercury, from our perspective on Earth, appears to be moving backwards in the sky, and it's a time of redo and review as well as miscommunications. So because this is a work house, you might experience miscommunications at work or technical snafus with your work computer or any devices that you use for work. Maybe Zoom isn't kind of connecting properly. That could really happen around now. And you might have to review some of your organizational systems too, or kind of go over them, or where you thought you may have had some order, you realize there's actually some sneaking disorder in them. So you might have to go through that again and straighten things out. Now on September 22nd, this is an important day because it's known as Epiphany Day. That means that Mercury is exactly conjoined the sun. Now this tends to happen, about twice for every broader Mercury retrograde cycle. And this is the lesser Epiphany Day, meaning that Mercury is retrograde as it conjoins that sun. And greater Epiphany Day, which we'll discuss later on in the year, happens when Mercury is conjoined the sun while it's going direct. So essentially, that's the technical part. What these mean is these can be days of a little bit of insights, of some connections. It can kind of bring some aha moments to wherever Mercury is in its retrograde cycle. So since it's all taking place in your sixth house, you might be having some insights around then about your workplace. Maybe you're trying, especially if you're trying to get organized at your workplace, or even some insights and aha moments due to the miscommunications you've been facing lately, or perhaps just your greater sense of order and getting things in your life kind of all sort of neat and tidy and ducks in a row. You might say, oh no, this is how I should approach, cleaning out my hard drive, or having these kinds of systems of organization at my workplace. Now, on September 23rd, this retrograding Mercury is going to dip into the fifth house. This is the house of children, creative projects, fun, and games. So if you do have children, this might be a time of miscommunications with them, shifts from the workplace over to your own family, your own little ones. And since the fifth house also represents creative projects, fun, and games, this could also be a time of review of any creative activities you're a part of, any hobbies, anything that you do for fun. Maybe you have to go over a gaming strategy, for example. Now, Mercury is going to be retrograde until October 2nd. So definitely, watch for our next month's video where we're going to tell you what that's going to be like when the cycle is over and where Mercury will be next. And I also have some news for you about Venus, the planet of art, love, and beauty. By pretty early on in the month, September 4th, she's going to be in your fifth house. And this is awesome. Venus loves being in the fifth house. Venus is a planet of pleasure, planet of relationships. The fifth house is the most fun house. It has to do with your children. It has to do with dating. It has to do with game playing in general. So Venus in the fifth is going to be a wonderful time for single Tauruses in their dating life. They might have a little extra dating luck this month. And what's also nice about Venus coming into the fifth is it's a wonderful time with your children. And since Mercury is doing a bit of a retrograde cycle in this house, if you guys do have miscommunications, Venus is going to add a little bit of harmony and sort of support that a little bit more. So those miscommunications don't go too wrong. Venus in the fifth, if you are in a relationship, can be a wonderful time for enjoying your partner in a fun way. Feel like you guys are sort of dating fresh and new all over again. Maybe that means going out with them more, having sort of a spirit of playfulness that you can bring into your relationship, which should be really fun. Then on September 30th, Venus is going to enter your sixth house. This is the house of work and organization. And we're really going to cover that in next month's video because it's only sort of entering this house the last day or two of the month. So definitely stay tuned for that. And finally, I always like to say a few things about Mars. Mars is the planet of drive. Wherever we have Mars, we really expend a lot of activity that month. But Mars is known as a malefic in astrology, which essentially means a challenging planet. There's definitely a higher side to Mars. It can be very constructive and helpful, but it usually requires a bit more attentiveness than, say, one of the easier planets like Venus. So Mars is going to start the month in Gemini, and he's going to hang out in Gemini for a while because Mars is slowing down this month, and he's going to do a whole retrograde cycle next month, which you're definitely going to want to hear about, and we'll let you know. So the Gemini rules your second house, and Mars is going to be in the second house for a number of months, but it's just kind of starting the month here. The second house is the house of your possessions. It's the house of your money and finance, and it can also represent your values, the values which are foundational to who you are. So Mars in the second house, this is a time where you may feel like there's a lot of sort of activity in your financial life. Maybe you're trying to work hard to sort of gain more money in some way. Maybe that's expanding business. Maybe that's just putting in more hours, more shifts, maybe working a little bit on the weekends to get a little bit more moolah. Mars in the second house, because this is the house of possessions, can mean that there's sometimes frustrations or conflicts around possessions. If somebody borrows your car without asking you right now, you might get really, really annoyed with Mars in the second. And Mars in the second, one of the challenging interpretations of this transit is it can bring some, frustrations and disagreements over money too. So, it could be, a disagreement with somebody you love over money, or maybe at your workplace, you're trying to get a raise and the boss isn't ready for that yet. But there can be some conflicts over money as well as values. So another meaning of the second is it's the house of our values. So if that's your political values, this is kind of a fighting at the dinner table with maybe a family member who you just don't agree with politically kind of transit, or, maybe it's spiritual values, family values, but there might be something going on here that, really gets you irritated about your values and wanting to sort of be very direct and expressive about them too. But like I said, Mars in the second can be a time where we're driven to make money. And that can definitely be the higher side of this transit.
Absolutely. There are a couple of moons and a seasonal change that I want to tell you about. The first of these happens on September 10th, when the moon opposes the sun here across the Pisces and Virgo axis. So it's a full moon in Virgo. And this one really lines up with Juno in Pisces right here in your 11th house, which I spoke of earlier in this horoscope. We're calling this moon reimagine relationships, but face pragmatic facts, because of the way that the moon conjuncts Juno in very dreamy, imaginative Pisces, but then the sun opposite them in Virgo is so much more practical, pragmatic, and grounded, and can provide a more realistic counter view to that process. And then the next thing that happens is that the sun travels through the rest of Virgo, just like this, passing through your 5th house, which I would have talked about last month. And then it moves on into your 6th house right about here, September 23rd, on Lesser Epiphany Day, which Julia talked about here in the 6th house. Mercury going retrograde and conjuncting the sun, and so giving insights about how to get better organized at work or at home. And wherever the sun goes, the sun brings the life-giving force of sunlight, which is best seen in our lives, as a metaphor, as attention. Wherever you pay your attention to, whatever area you spread it around in, like sunlight, it helps things to grow. So in the 6th house, when the sun moves in there, which it starts on September 23rd, and it takes 30 days to pass through any given house. So for that 30-day period, it's really, really good to pay attention to your organizational structures and systems. How do you manage your day? How do you run your task lists? How do you manage projects? How do you organize things in space, in boxes and so forth around your home? How do you keep your desk? Is it clean? Is it messy? How can you bring it to a better state of balance and make it more like friendly of a place for you to show up? So then as the sun moves on, the moon joins it right about here, September 26th, 25th, actually, and late in the day here in California time. So your miles might vary according to your own time zone. But when the sun and the moon meet up here in the 6th house, a new moon is always a good time of planting seeds. This is a new moon in Libra, so it's got a theme of diplomacy embedded right in it. And we know it's happening in the 6th house, and that has to do with creating order. And so this moon we're calling calculated diplomacy versus boundless enthusiasm. And the reason for the boundless enthusiasm is that Jupiter is over here opposite to the moon. So we have the sun and the moon together saying new beginnings, plant seeds in your systems and your methods of creating order at home and work, and also in your health routines that keep you healthy. When you take those vitamins that you're supposed to take, or you manage your physical world and your physical body in those ways that you're supposed to. Brushing the back of your teeth, for example. So the new moon is saying it's a good time to begin some new practices. And then Jupiter over here landing in the 12th house, and it's really going to be traveling through your 12th house for the year, essentially. And knowing exactly when that starts and when that finishes really depends on knowing your precise birth time. And you can find that out in a reading, for example. But Jupiter in the 12th house is a lovely transit. And so you might well feel the tug of Jupiter opposite this moon. And so you might feel like, well, I'm trying to organize and create a better state of balance in my life of order. But that Jupiter over in the 12th house is just making me feel like, if I could just close my eyes and go into my imagination, my ancestors want to speak to me and they want to bring me some wonderful news about my own future and how I could grow. I feel like angels are looking over my shoulder, but like I have to organize this shelf right now. That might be your experience during this new moon. So plant the seeds anyway. You can get back to Jupiter later. A moon is more fleeting, so you should take advantage of it while it's on. All right. Well, that is what we had for you today, Taurus. You can always find your horoscope on our website, pandoraastrology.com. And if this was your sun sign horoscope, definitely check out your rising sign horoscope because it will work much better. And if you want a reading with us, that mission orders career reading, for example, you can find us in the readings tab and you can get yourself into our schedule. If you're interested in a class, there's a tab for that too. And the monthly forecast can be found with videos about this month's moons. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.